You don't have to be in these situations, and there are ways out of them. I think that so many women feel disempowered in their current circumstances and don't really know how to exit them. And there are some strategies and there are some things that you can do. Can I share my screen? I've got a presentation that I was
Of
going
course.
to do.
Yeah.
Okay. One moment. Let's see. Let's share this and let's just play it. So, again, my name is Michelle Ward. My coaching business is Elan Vital Coaching. And Elan Vital basically is French for vital force. And it was a phrase that was coined by Dr. Henry Bergson in a book in 1906 called Creative Evolution. And basically, what it means, this vital force is something that every cell is born with, everything is born with and evolves from. Unfortunately, as humans, our vital force is quashed through the years, and especially in our formative years, because of social norms, cultural norms, familial norms, things like that. People telling us who we are, who we need to be. And we don't really oftentimes get a chance to evolve into the person and who the person that we're meant to be. So I am all about awakening your vital force, that Elon Vital. One of the things that I touch on is, or teach on and coach on, is subconscious programming. Now, we all know that we have a conscious mind and a subconscious mind, but what a lot of us don't know is the subconscious mind is running the show. And we actually need that because what if you had to think about breathing and digesting and liver processes and kidney processes all day? It'd be exhausting. You wouldn't be able to do anything else. So the subconscious is actually a great thing for us to just survive. But also the subconscious it remembers everything and how we perceive certain events in our life, especially from the third trimester in the womb up until age 7, really forms our beliefs. So deeply ingrained beliefs may not align with our conscious understanding of what is healthy or deserved. The subconscious programming is heavily influenced by early experiences, and the subconscious learns primarily through repetition and reinforcement. Authority figures, traumatic events, emotionally charged statements can leave deep imprints that shape our beliefs and behaviors into adulthood. And we don't even realize that those things are running the show. Stanford research shows that we have about 65,000 thoughts per day. 93 to 97% of those thoughts are subconscious, and 60 to 80% of those subconscious thoughts are negative, and we don't even realize that. So it's an important thing to remember. Subconscious programming often leads to a fear of leaving the perceived safety of current circumstances, and also a fear of the unknown outside of what is normal to you. We all have subconscious programming. Now, what our subconscious believes is safe, its job is to keep you safe. It has no logical thinking ability, um, is not always safe, as we know. So there's a long-term impact of early childhood programming. So there's limiting beliefs that often become self-fulfilling prophecies. Maybe you grew up in a home. I grew up in a home where my dad was constantly angry and yelling, and I never knew and so that translated into self-sabotaging behaviors into my 40s, really. So early experiences within our family of origin can shape our beliefs about relationships, leading to unhealthy patterns in our adult relationships. If you, like me, had lived in a home where the father was yelling and the mom was emotionally disconnected and not, my mom was emotionally disconnected and not really sticking up for me, I didn't feel worthy of just even living. And I didn't feel like what I had to say mattered. And I didn't feel like I had any protection at all. So the fear of striving for something beyond the norm we are afraid that it'll be met with criticism or resistance or even punishment. So how does this go along with setting healthy boundaries? It has a lot to do with it because what we believe about ourselves subconsciously will manifest in ways of not setting healthy boundaries, not standing up for ourselves, not being able to recognize manipulations and coercions in a relationship. And then you're so deep into this relationship that, it feels hard to get out of it. And I'm sure a lot of people can identify with that. So where does this stem from? There's five top emotions that keep us from setting healthy boundaries. Now there are other ones, but I'm just going to go over the top five. Like guilt. I have to make other people happy before I make myself happy. There's this guilty feeling of I can't do that because that will make them unhappy. There's fear. A lot of people think that their acceptance is conditional on complying with someone else's wishes. Um, there's confusion. A lot of times there's confusion about, Agape touched on this in that video is that you receive mixed message about what love is, and then you tie that to your self-worth. There's shame. I must deserve this behavior, or there's something wrong with me. And I fell into that shame hole a lot. And then there's also sadness. This is not how I believe the relationship was supposed to be. So I'm going to do what I can to fix it. And so we stay in this repetitive pattern or this belief that I deserve this behavior and this is not how I thought it was going to turn out. So I'm just going to keep on trying to fix the situation when a lot of times it's just not fixable. So that's where it's important to start setting boundaries. So how do we set boundaries? It sounds hard to some people, but it actually is a process and it's really redefining your self-worth for yourself. And so boundaries define our limits and protect our inner peace. Brene Brown said that, which it may not seem like at the time. So I'll just give you a little bit of my story. About 20 years ago, my mom started exhibiting some erratic behavior, chaotic behavior, and and it was linked to drinking and her own emotions that she had not dealt with. But I allowed the behavior because I didn't have to be with her all the time, and I thought I could handle it. But it started escalating and escalating until it hit pitch fever about 8 months ago. And I finally put my foot down and I had to tell her until she got into a recovery program or got into some therapy that I was not going to be able to have any more contact with her. So a lot of people can identify with the manipulator of the person you're trying to uh, manipulations of the person that you're trying to set the boundaries with, and they will turn it on you. And I guess we call that gaslighting right now, or it's referred to as gaslighting. But when you are the person that is setting the boundaries, it is really difficult to separate the wheat from the chaff, basically, to separate what is manipulation, coercion. She would not take responsibility. She blamed me for, all of her woes. And for 4 months, I would tell her it would be over text. She would send me these crazy texts and blame me for her having a broken heart. And I told her over and over again, I'm not going to have a discussion with you about this until you get some help. And for 4 months, she wouldn't do it. She wouldn't do it. I don't need therapy. I'm not an alcoholic. I don't have a problem. You're the problem. You're saying I'm a horrible mother, which I never said that, but she was projecting. And finally, she realized after that 4 month period that I was actually serious, that I was not going to engage with her until she got some help. So she did go into therapy and is following what I asked her to do in order for us to re-engage in conversation. Now, it's been 4 months. We're still not talking, but I see some hope and I see a light at the end of the tunnel. But it was very difficult for me. I felt guilty because that's my mom. I felt shame because maybe I'm misinterpreting this. I felt confused because this is not how you're supposed to have a relationship with your mom. I felt fear because the whole family dynamic was disrupted because of me. Thanksgiving looked different, Christmas looked different. birthdays, celebrations, and all those things look different because I'm not engaging with the family because of her. It's gotten easier, but if I had not set that boundary with her, she would have never gotten help. And like I say, the story is not over yet, but there is some hope there. So with the whole, we'll go over these five emotions that you might feel. And here are some practical things that somebody can do in order to evaluate what they are, the situation, questions to ask, things to ponder in order to help you evaluate how you can get out of the situation. So with guilt, you actually have the right to express your feelings without feeling guilty. You have a right to your emotions, and it's okay. You have the right to say no without feeling guilty. You have the right to say, no, I'm not going to accept this type of behavior anymore. I'm not going to engage in this conversation because it never works out well. Practice saying no or expressing your emotions in the mirror. I think one of the hardest things to do is talk to myself in the mirror because I just was just uncomfortable. But if you can tell yourself over and over in the mirror or practice what you're going to say and say it to yourself, it becomes ingrained in your subconscious and it becomes easier to do. Know why you are setting the boundaries. I had to write out an entire list of things of why I was doing because my husband even told me, "'Cause you need to write that stuff out because you're going to forget or you're going to start thinking it's not that big of a deal." And I would go back to maybe it's just how she is. I shouldn't take this so personally. I should, but no, it was important for my personal peace and my own mental health in order to know why I was setting the boundary with her. And it was important for me, for her too, because I had to repeat the same thing over and over again and ask these questions. Why do I feel guilty when I prioritize my needs? Where is that coming from? A lot of that comes from subconscious programming that happened in the formative years. And then the subconscious programming is there to keep you safe. The subconscious, again, is there to keep you safe, but safety isn't safe whenever you evolve and grow into adulthood. And then whose voice is really speaking when I feel this guilt? Is that the voice of my dad telling me that I don't deserve a good life? Is that the voice of my mom saying you're not worthy? Or whatever it is that was said to you whenever you were a child. Fear, how do you deal with the fear? You've got to develop a clear plan for how to stay safe in situations where boundaries may trigger aggressive responses. You've got to practice setting boundaries in a safe place to reduce the anxiety about real life situations. You can practice it with a friend, you can practice it with a loved one, you can practice it with a therapist or a counselor. You've got to learn to recognize the early signs of manipulation and control in relationships to avoid deeper involvement. We all see red flags, and I always tell I have two daughters, and 22 and 24, and I tell them when they have started relationships is that person is telling you who they are. You need to believe them. If they're manipulating you, coercing you, trying to make you feel guilty or feel bad or shame, then that is not going to get better. So I would reevaluate the relationship and learn from other experiences. And then ask yourself what specific outcomes, like what is it that you're afraid is going to happen when you set these boundaries? And really, how realistic are these fears? And what evidence do I have that supports a different outcome? A lot of times we base our current situation on our past instead of really being in the present moment and thinking to yourself, I've got to ground myself in this present moment and think what good outcome can come from setting these boundaries. Like my mom, I was like, I didn't really expect anything to change, but a good thing that did happen is that she is getting some help that she needs. I had no way of knowing that was actually going to happen, but now I have hope that will be a good thing. Let's see here. Confusion. You can use writing to clarify your feelings and distinguish between past manipulation and current realities. You can use your past experiences to identify patterns or to identify things that look familiar and that you maybe want to avoid. You can seek out books, workshops, seminars like this on healthy relationships and to understand what healthy interactions look like. A lot of times when we grow up, our environment is what's normal to us. We don't know any different. How many times have you maybe you went away to college or went to a friend's house or saw a healthy relationship playing out and you're like, wait, is that what normal looks like? Because what normal looks like to me is not that. And so seeking out healthy interactions to help you understand and uncover what you think is normal may not be normal or acceptable. This is another thing. This is so key. Give new relationships time in different settings and observe how they respect boundaries before deepening the relationship. I can't tell you how many clients or friends that I've had in the past who go full in and knee deep or actually neck deep in the water of a relationship within a couple of 2 or 3 weeks. That they're in love. This is my soulmate. This is whatever. And it turns out that they haven't given the relationship enough time to develop in order to see what the red flags might be or where there could be potential issues in the future. And a lot of that has to do with subconscious programming because of our desire and our need to be loved or be seen or to feel desired. So it's important to observe before you go too deep into a relationship and ask what messages from my past are confusing my understanding of healthy relationships. Just think about unhealthy relationships that you've had in the past and what were the triggers that caused behavior or what were the things that you were telling yourself that you believed that kept you in that relationship, and how does this confusion affect my ability to set healthy boundaries? A lot of times, I say this a lot, is you can't see the picture when you're standing in the frame. So it's super important to get the get the support that you need in order to answer these questions. And shame. So shame is one of the lowest vibrations energies that we can feel. Shame will keep us stuck. It will keep us in unhealthy relationships. It will keep us from really igniting that vital force, that Elan Batal within us. So one of the ways that you can tap into who you are is just sitting still for a moment, like just sitting still for 5 minutes a day and observe your thoughts and have compassion for yourself. It's okay to feel bad. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be upset and frustrated and infuriated. Those are just those emotions are pointing to something that has to be worked on, and there's nothing wrong with them. Work with a coach, a therapist, an energy healer to address deep seated shame and to learn how to separate your self worth from other people's actions. How people respond to you and how people talk about you or talk to you has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with them. Allowing somebody else to define who you are and form an identity around that, it's not helpful. And more than likely, or all the time, whenever somebody is reacting negatively to you, it has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with them. So identifying or believing and knowing that to be true and just really tapping into your self worth is very important to help you set good boundaries. Avoiding relationships that echo past abusive dynamics and seeking out people who lift you up rather than degrade. If somebody is degrading you, if somebody is beating you down, if somebody is telling you that you're worthless, it's time to set a boundary and get out of that relationship. And then ask, what beliefs do I hold about myself that fuel my shame? Do I think I'm unworthy, undeserving? Do I think I'm unlucky? Do I think that this is just how life is supposed to be? Really identify those beliefs and question them. And then think about a friend. You probably heard this before, but think about how you talk to yourself. And if you had a friend that talked to you the way you talk to yourself, maybe they wouldn't be a friend, right? So really evaluate that. But if you have a friend that's in a situation, how do you view that person? Do you view them as shameful or what do you think about them? No, you probably have great compassion for them and want to help them. A lot of times how you view other people is how you view yourself. You've heard if you're pointing at someone, you've got four other fingers pointing back at you. Think about that, like how you are viewing a situation, an outside situation, is a lot of times how you view yourself. And then the last thing is sadness. It's hard to exit a relationship. It is hard to set boundaries in a toxic situation, but getting professional support to process the grief of letting go is really helpful. I did that, and it was one of the best things I did for myself because you can't, again, see the picture when you're standing in the frame. And building connection with supportive friends, family, or support groups, they're all over the place who understand and can validate your emotional journey. Very important. And allow yourself time to fully grieve past relationships and idealized versions of them. I thought it was supposed to be this way. I wanted it to be this way. I needed it to be this way. It's okay to feel those feelings of grief and sadness that they didn't turn out that way, because that can make space for healthier future relationships. And the last couple of questions I have you ask is, what am I really losing by setting this boundary? But what might I gain? A lot of people don't make changes because they can't see past their current situation. But when they do make the changes and they do set the boundaries and they do move past those toxic relationships, they reveal a life and an experience of life and joy and happiness that they did not know could happen. And then honor your sadness. How can you honor your sadness while still moving forward towards healthier relationships? And these are all just things that you've got to ponder yourself. Everybody's situation is different. Everybody will have different answers, but spending time with yourself to identify and answer these questions is very helpful and important when setting boundaries. Now, in our body that lead to self sabotaging behavior. We don't even know that they're there. The subconscious stores trapped emotions, and it makes it very hard to move past the idea of setting a boundary or move past the idea of you're not worthy.